Welcome to another Insider Special Report. It's the Texas Tech Hoop Scoop. I'm Jared Johnson. I'm joined by the Mighty Joe Yeager. Mighty Joe, man, it's been a while. We're back from our holiday hiatus. Man, even though there hadn't been a ton of games, a lot has happened on the hardwood for the Red Raiders. First off, they went to New York. Great scene there, Mighty Joe. You know, a lot of Red Raider fans. They fell to Duke, but they played well enough that they actually moved up in the polls. And then, of course, Texas Tech opened Big 12 play in Morgantown with a historic victory, first ever win in Morgantown on Wednesday night. So just great things happening on the hardwood for the Red Raiders overall. But first off, how was your holiday?
Yeah, it was great, man. Not quite as wild and crazy as yours. You were up in the Big Apple.
Yeah.
You know, I was hanging out here in the old hub, but yeah, all was good.
So what do you think, what was your main takeaway from the game against Duke? Now, of course, Texas Tech lost by 11. It seemed to play out exactly how, I think, the last video we did, like you thought it would. But what was your overall impression about the scene and about how the Red Raiders played?
Well, I mean, first off, hats off to the fans.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fantastic. You were there. You know better than I do, but I mean, it sounded like on TV. I'm sure it wasn't a 50-50 split, but there was a large Tech contingent there, and they made their presence known, so that was great. I mean, Durham, North Carolina is a little bit closer to New York than Lubbock is, so outstanding from that standpoint. As far as the Red Raiders, they passed the eyeball test. They proved that they flat out belong. You know, I mean, there were people who questioned the schedule and, you know, is Texas Tech really that good? Or I mean, they're saying the same thing with St. John's. Until recently, they were undefeated, but they hadn't played anybody. So Tech was kind of in that pool, but they're not in it anymore because of what happened at Duke. They got more respect out of that loss than they did every win that they had beforehand, combined probably. You know, you're disappointed that you didn't win. They expected to win, but the overall result for the program is a positive one.
Yeah, and I agree with what you said there. And, you know, as you mentioned, I was there, and it was a magical trip for me. I'm not going to lie, even more than I could have hoped for. It was a blessing to be able to do that. A lot of planning and funds went into that. Thank you, 24/7. Thank you, Red Raider Outfitter. But, look, bottom line is I came away with a couple of things that I think we knew, but they were heightened. It was amazing on that stage how heightened everything we thought about Red Raider basketball was. Like you said, the fans, I was in the middle of it. I was on the floor there on the baseline in the middle of the Tech section. There was about 4 or 5 actual sections where Tech was, and man, maybe the best I've ever heard the fans anywhere, ever. And that's saying something. You know, I wasn't at the Tech UT football game in 2008, which I imagine that was crazy, but I've been in some pretty amazing Red Raider games and atmospheres, like Spike's last home game, you know, a bunch of basketball games just in the past 5 years that have been epic. That was one of the best as far as a fan presence I've ever heard. And I had chills, to be honest. I'm probably not, I said this on the radio, I'm probably not supposed to feel this way, but I was proud and I got chills a couple of times. I mean, there was like 10 Raider Power chants and they were echoing across Madison Square Garden, you know, on ESPN, the big stage, all that. In the first half, or actually like in the first 10 minutes of the first half, there was that. And even I was sitting next to like CBS and like Forbes and all, you know, all these other people that don't care about Texas Tech, honestly, and they all were just blown away with how great Tech's fans were and what an impact they had on the game. So I got to tip the cap to that. No secondary ball handler other than Jarrett Culver. That was, I mean, so obvious. Their point guard just really did a number on Texas Tech late. I forgot his name off the top. Trey Jones, thank you. Trey Jones just really, I mean, he was, Coach K said it after the game, and I said it on the board in the game thread. He was the difference in the game. You know, Duke had him and Tech didn't. For all the talk about Zion and Barrett, and rightfully so, wow, Zion. That was another thing hammered home. His athleticism. I've never seen anything like it. It was amazing. But also, Jarrett Culver's legit. That's number 3. And perhaps most importantly, other than fans, Texas defense is elite against elite talent. You know what I mean? They shut down Duke. Now, Duke missed some open shots, sure, but they were hurried in their offense, you know, and they were playing on a big stage too, all that. But Tech's defense showed that it was legit against the most legit competition it probably could this season, honestly. So I feel like we know all those things. They're going to struggle on offense some, but that defense, like we saw against West Virginia, which brings me to my next point. The defense will still travel. It seems to show up every night. I mean, since Chris Beard's been here, they're going to play tough defense. And it sure as heck showed up on a night where your offense really struggled. Culver didn't score in the first half. Everybody was in foul trouble. It was a really weirdly reffed game. I don't like to say that a lot, but it was just dumb the way it was reffed, honestly. But bottom line is, you go in there, Tech goes in there and gets the W, 62-59 to open up Big 12 play in Morgantown, Joe.
Yeah, look, I mean, you get down by 9 points in a place you've never won before. Yeah. You got your two bigs foul out. Your main hoss on offense, your best player, Culver, saddled with fouls, doesn't score a single point in the first half.
And your best defender, you'd argue, at least your interior defender, same thing with Tariq Owens.
Yes, exactly. And then Kyler Edwards fouls out, and you don't get anything pretty much from Edwards and Corprew. And what do? You come back from that deficit and you win that game. I mean, that was like, it was just everything stacked against you in a very, very tough situation, and you come back and win. I mean, this is just one of those games that's, they checked off another box here. I mean, see, they had never won a game so far this season by single digits. All their wins have been double digits or more, so they showed that they can win a game where they're in just a hand-to-hand combat in a tough, gritty, close game on the road in a tough environment. I mean, West Virginia's a hard place to play. And you get it done. I mean, from a kind of a team spirit, camaraderie, chemistry building sort of a win, that's it in spades.
Yeah, and Culver, though he didn't score in the first half, he scored 18 in the second half, and he was money down the stretch. He was very much in the vein of Keenan Evans, in the role of Keenan Evans last year as the ultimate closer. We've had questions. Do they have a closer since Evans is gone? And I mean, look, Culver's been money all year, so you expect him to be able to do it. But like you said, they haven't been in a close game, win or lose. Even the Duke loss, I mean, yeah, it was close to a point, but you lose by double digits. So you answered some questions in Morgantown too. With everything stacked against you, is this team going to be tough enough to win on the road? Yes, apparently so. Now they're going to be tested even more in some other atmospheres against some better teams. But that being said, you did see a closer in Culver emerge, and you did see a team gut out a win. And you mentioned the history, the historic part of it. I mean, eventually they're going to run out of history they can make, right, under Chris Beard? I mean, because you look at it, last year, I remember it seemed like every week Tech was, doing something they've never done before, whether it be winning in Lawrence and then, of course, eventually going to the Elite Eight. But there was other smaller things.
Ranking,
highest ever ranking. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I mean, they still have, it's a long list. There's a lot more they can do, but at some point they're going to run out of things of history they can make, right, Joe? Or not?
Well, all right. Well, Final Four is next, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
we're winning the Big 12.
We're winning the Big 12. I mean, there's obviously plenty to shoot for, but they've knocked off a lot of targets already, and this is only he's 2.5 years into this thing, Chris Beard. So. It's just astonishing what's going on.
And when we look at it, when you see the process, when you go, even the glimpse that we get, we don't get to go to all the practices and all that stuff, but the glimpses that we do get, it's obvious why it's happening. You know what I mean? Like, it has been. Even when the first season, when they didn't go to the tournament, and it was very disappointing down the stretch. Don't get me wrong, that they couldn't close the deal. But you could see the foundation, for a lack of a better term, the foundation being laid, and the way this coaching staff has gone about their business. And let's just be honest. I mean, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, but Chris Beard, he's an amazing coach, and he's really, through his willpower, made this happen. So even when they were down last night or Wednesday night, I didn't think Texas Tech was going to lose. Just because of, honestly, Coach Beard and the way his teams has played under him. I'm not saying that's always going to happen, but that was my feeling. And I think, honestly, that's different than how I felt about a lot of Tech sports, other than perhaps baseball, recently.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that first year, they were really just kind of this close to making the postseason that year, and even the NCAA tournament. I mean, they should have gone to the NIT, but they were in a situation where they lost a string of overtime games, and that devastating, I believe it was a double overtime loss to Iowa State here, which was, I've never seen a more brutal loss in a basketball game than that. But the foundation was being established. You could see that it was coming together and building. And what you're seeing now in the third year is, you know, there may have been a few naysayers and maybe a doubter here or there. We're saying,
but locally. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but you know, saying, well, okay, all right, these are Tubby's guys. You know, can he do it with his own guys? Well, this is substantially, almost exclusively his team now, his roster. I believe Norrance is the only Tubby holdover still on the roster.
Right.
So this is basically his entire team, and they just keep getting better and better and better. So you know, it wasn't just Tubby did a great job while he was here, but this is being built upon right now and in a different direction.
And sorry I interrupted you earlier, but the point I think you also were making about naysayers was like locally, I think people who have seen the process and seen and knew some of the guys coming back or the guys that were added, and I don't think it was just local guys being homers. I really don't believe that. Nobody bought the 7th finish in the Big 12. You know what I mean? Like, that just was not going to happen. Now, I would say they've exceeded my expectations. I didn't think they'd be hovering around top 10 and hanging with Duke and Madison Square Garden like they did and beating everybody else, you know, necessarily winning in Morgantown, even though Morgantown is in transition as well, or West Virginia. But bottom line is, not only do they look good now, but you want to talk about recruiting. If you haven't seen what Jamias Ramsey, your 4-star signee, has done, McCullough's already on campus, Moore's on campus. They haven't even suited up yet. It's only going to get better and better. I mean, talent-wise, there's no doubt they're going to be more talented next year than they are this year. So, even if Culver leaves, so great. We're living in the golden years. My buddy Jeff Scott said that on the Rock 101.1 Rockin' Pregame. I think that's the best quote I've heard since I've been here. We are living in the glory days of Tech basketball. You know, soak it up. But
yeah, you know, and just a little bit talking about the talent for next year. Now, I don't believe for an instant that Jarrett Culver will return. I believe it's very, very likely that he's going to be gone after this year. But I'll tell you this, if he did choose to come back, I think Tech might win the national title next year.
I do too.
You know, I mean, so that's something for Jarrett perhaps to think about.
Hypothetically, if he chose to come back and say maybe graduate, go ahead and get his degree and go, yeah, I would not put it past Texas Tech winning the national championship. I know that sounds crazy. Call us homers if you want, but look at the talent. Look at what guys like Ramsey and Culver, McCullough, Moore. I mean, loaded. So, anyways, we could go on and on talking about Red Raider basketball, but we're going to end here. Mighty Joe, great stuff from you as always. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And until next time.